And coming to you live from the News Hub, this is Midday Live. Good afternoon to you and thanks so much for your time. My name is Nanikia Mensah Brampa. Let's settle now for the headlines. And coming up this afternoon, Attorney General seeks public support to apprehend the fugitive behind the Central Medical Stores fire. Also, former President John Dramani Mahama concedes for the first time there were irregularities in the 2016 elections, which he lost to Nana Akufo-Addo. 4 suspects in a gang rape at Bantama in Kumasi have appeared before the Asquat Juvenile Court for the 4th time. Also coming up this afternoon, on the foreign front, South Africa's President Jacob Zuma relents on calls to set up a commission of inquiry into corruption allegations at the heart of government. Why, so we have the detail of these, including the latest in sports and entertainment, in the next hour. Stay with us. Now to the detail. Former President John Dramani Mahama has conceded for the first time there were some irregularities with the 2016 elections and, with then candidate Nana Akufo-Addo. Now, according to him, he rejected the option of touring the country to gather evidence of overvoting and other irregularities because his National Democratic Congress, the NDC campaign, wanted to institutionalize democracy.
In 2016, we lost. I considered, immediately. It's not like there were no irregularities. I could have gone around and gathered all kinds of examples of overvoting and tied the nation in court again. But I do think that NDC is playing the game democratically. NPP are the ones that often will never accept when they have lost elections. But be that as it may, I say Ghana has earned the accolade beacon of democracy because the elections have been largely successful and it's not broken down into violence and bloodshed like we've seen in many other countries, and that's why Ghana continues to be given that accolade. But let me caution, we're entering a very dangerous phase. With the rise of all these vigilante groups, and I've heard some NPP party apparatchiki saying they would not abolish the vigilantes and that they're going to use them, to guard this thing. When we're in government, they said they didn't believe in the police service, and that's why they set up those vigilante groups. And now those vigilante groups are all over the place. And so if the other party also decides to put up vigilante groups all over the place, you can imagine the kind of clashes that we can expect to begin
Your Excellency,
to take place.
Sorry, but in 2009, when the ANC came back, we had similar stories compared to the stories we are hearing now about vigilante groups.
They were isolated. Listen, they were isolated. You had Bamba Boys, which was MPP. You had Azoka Boys, which was NDC. You had Boku Boys. You had something. But these were few groups far in between. Now, there are groups in every region, and they have different accolades.
In every party, in every one of the two parties?
No, we don't have. In most regions, we don't have any vigilante groups. No. If you ask to mention any vigilante groups in the NDC, the only name they will mention is Azoka Boys. That's it.
All right, so former President John Mahama speaking on Moment Tonight on GTV, recorded earlier on. And, we're still sticking to this particular subject, talking about the 2016 elections having irregularities as raised by the former president. And joining us on the phone this afternoon is Dr. Edward Brenya, who is a political scientist. Good afternoon to you, Doc, and thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, Amma.
Now, did the option of not pursuing a suspected case of overvoting be the best option for former President Mahama and the NDC to take?
Good afternoon to the able listeners of TV3. I think if you recall, during the time that the results were coming in and a lot of people were expecting that the former president would have considered defeat, the NDC for a very long time delayed that concession speech. And we all remember the famous speech being in a comfortable lead. And the information that was gathered then was that there were a lot of irregularities in certain polling stations. And per the law of Ghana, if any polling station registers over voting, then that result should be nullified. And I think that at that point in time, the NDC had gathered quite a number in Ashanti region in particular, and therefore, when the president says that they had evidence that they could have relied upon to maybe sort of challenge the results of 2016 election, I think it is a fact that the president has said. But the NDC decided, as he rightly said, that they would let it go so that democracy can thrive. And when we look at histories of democracy globally, there's never been an election that has been 100% perfect. Most of the time you get one or two irregularities, but it is embedded on the leadership of the party to decide whether they will challenge it or to allow.
So does it suggest then, Doc, does it suggest that had John Mahama and the NDC pursued and confirmed their suspicions of these widespread cases you are talking about of overvoting and all, would that have had any purpose at all?
Well, it depends on the quantum of the cases. We know for a fact that Ashanti regions serve as the strong base of the MPP, and if for those regions you are getting a lot of overvoting, and if indeed that should result in many cases where the results could be nullified, then of course you would want to suggest that maybe it could have made a difference. But since that did not happen, for now we just have to stick with the decision not to challenge it, and the fact that Ghana's democracy is thriving because the NDC decided not to do that.
Right, we are grateful for your time, Dr. Edward Brenya, political scientist, looking at the 2016 elections having irregularities as finally being confirmed by former President John Mahama. We're still talking politics, and findings by Political Science Department of the University of Ghana School says that if elections were held today, the NPP would have won by 52.7%, while NDC would have received 33%. Well, 58% of the findings also indicates that President Mahama should lead the NDC party, while the rest of the candidates scored less than 7%. So these are findings coming in from the Political Science Department of the University of Ghana. And my colleague, Daniel Opoku, is at this meeting, and he joins us via phone this afternoon. Daniel, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Now, tell us, what more did the department find out before we go into how they accounts for this particular percentages that they are coming out with?
Right. Basically, the department was assessing the 1 year in office of the president. And, the sample size that they took for the research was 5,000 respondents across nationwide. And they selected for the various regions or the various electoral areas. Now, they based the findings on some major policies of the government. For instance, the free SHS policy. The respondents indicated that 49% of the respondents said the free SHS was a very good policy. And then followed by illegal mining, which is 37.2%, then the restoration of the nursing trainee allowances and the teacher trainee allowances. But when you itemize them properly, you realize that the free SHS policy scored 76.6% from the general response to the 5,000 people who were sampled and they spoke with. 76.6% of them said supported the free SHS was a very good policy. Now, 64% of the respondents again said the special prosecutor, the creation of the special prosecutor was a very good decision by government because it's going to help government to recover all the funds which allegedly have been misappropriated. But there were some mixed feelings as to whether the special prosecutor is going to be an independent candidate or not. Now, in that case, 26.4% of the respondents were indifferent to their responses, but 48.8% were certain that the special prosecutor is going to be very independent. So generally, 74% in total, actually, were confident that special prosecutor's office is going to be very independent. And again, they looked at the creation of the new regions, where 64.7% 6% of the respondents said supported the idea for new regions should be created. And then the popularity of government with regard to the various policies that they itemized. 62% of the respondents said yes. Because of the various policies, the government is popular, despite the fact that government can do more to achieve the middle result. So in general, I realize that out of all the research that the political science department did, 52.7% of them said if elections were to be held today, the MPP would have won the election, with NDC getting 33%. Even though they focus on the economy and unemployment issues, despite some of the difficulties within those particular sectors, we were confident that 52.7% of the respondents said the MPP would have won the election. Then another issue has to do with President Mahama of the NDC, whether to lead the NDC or not. Currently, we know Mr. Sylvester Mensah has expressed interest. Professor Joshua Alabi has also expressed interest. Mr. Rickett Hagan has also expressed interest, and Mr. Spiogabra, Dr. Spiogabra has also expressed interest. Now, the general respondents indicated that 58% of them wanted President Mahama to lead the party, and the rest scored just 2%.
As in the rest of the candidates you just mentioned?
The rest of the candidates, Mr. Sylvester Mensah, Professor Joshua Alabi, Dr. Spiogabra, Mr. Rickett Hagan, all of them scored less than 7%.
But did the findings, Daniel, did the findings come out with anything that could make a difference, could change this 58% that has come out for the former President Mahama?
Now, what the research finding is indicating that the other contenders should pool their resources together and see whether they can fight this percentage, 58% of President Mahama leading the party. And that President Mahama is going to win the primaries and is going to lead their party for the next bout of elections to be held in 2020.
Now, Daniel, these findings means that if elections are held today, that is the figure, 52.7 for the NPP. Did the departments come out with any difference that if this and this is done, it could change this figure, 52.7%?
Right. The department is basically saying that the government policy on unemployment should be very clear. Government should be able to create a lot of jobs for the Ghanaians. Now, after the unemployment rate, 32% of them said, yes, it has improved a little. And 35% of them said it has remained where it is unchanged. While 9% still think that there are opportunities for them to explore. And again, the cost of living was another issue that they looked at. 20% said it has not changed, and the 80% said cost of living has not actually changed. So the political science department, and then when we look at the economy, 44.9% said it has improved, while 42.6% of them said it has not improved. So what they are proposing, that if government is able to clearly state its policy, to clearly introduce measures to address unemployment rate, being able to maintain and keep the macroeconomic stability in check, then clearly they will be able to inch up with regard to the 52.7% that is called.
Right, we're grateful for your time. Daniel Opoku is my colleague at the University of Ghana Political Science Department, where findings coming out from that department says that if elections were held today, the NPP would have won by 52.7%, while the NDC would have received 33%. And also 58% of the findings indicates that President Mahama, that is former President Mahama, should lead the NDC party, while the rest of the candidates scored less than 7%. Well, you'll gather more on that particular one, and then in subsequent bulletins we'll be giving you. But still staying on the former President John Mahama, he has dispelled rumors that there is a dispute between him and former President John Rawlings, reacting to a viral video in which his predecessor was seen giving him a cold handshake at the recent Silver Jubilee celebration of the Fourth Republic. Mr. Mahama explains that having worked with the founder of the NDC for a long time, he understands his mood swings.
Some other occasions, I met him in Kwando, and we had a very warm handshake, and we exchanged, pleasantries. There's sometimes you sit next to him, he's not in the mood to speak, to talk. But there's sometimes you sit next to him and he's in a mood to talk. So you have to learn in which mood he is and adjust accordingly. But I don't have any problem with President Rawlings. Indeed, he gave me my opportunities in life. I mean, when I came in as a young member of Parliament, it was his appointment as Deputy Minister that got me noticed, and then from there he appointed me as Minister of Communications until we left office in 2001. And so I don't have absolutely anything against President Rawlings, and I think we belong to the same party. He's criticized many administrations. He's criticized Kufuor's administration, he's criticized Prof. Sambil's administration, he's criticized my administration, and so it's his human right to do so. If he thinks that things are not going right, it's his right to offer that criticism, and you take it in good faith. I mean, if you think that the criticism is valuable, you take it. If it's not, you discuss. When you're president, you have to take decisions on a daily basis. And you must listen to criticism and listen to people, but eventually the decision is yours to take. And so there might have been times where he makes a suggestion, and based on the information I have from national security and intelligence, I realize that he does not have as much information as I have. And so I take a decision that might be contrary to his. Of course, you won't be happy, and so he will criticize you, but that's what governance is about. That's what the presidency is about.
And that reaction was also captured on Moment Tonight on GTV. Let's move away now from politics, and a latest research by Center for Media Analysis show the chairperson of the Electoral Commission is highly mistrusted. The reports by the Center for Media Analysis sought to ascertain Madam Charlotte Osei's credibility in the eyes of Ghanaians. 22% of respondents say she is incompetent, 21% mistrust her, 20% says she won the position based on sexual inducement, and 18% say she is corruptible, and 19% also say she is politically biased. And Dr. Mesan Malgbe is the Executive Director at the Center for Media Analysis. Good afternoon to you, sir, and thanks for your time.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to your viewers and listeners.
Right. Now, what informed this survey?
Thank you very much. What informed this survey was based on the consistent framing of the chairperson in certain contexts. For instance, when she was appointed, there were certain misgivings, both pluses and minuses. And all the way to recent development at the EC, we realized that certain institutions or certain individuals believe that a certain political agenda has been set to sort of get her out of the office. Now the question is, how could the public or how could people be thinking in this manner? There could only be one reason, or one of the reasons is how the chairperson of the EC, Mrs. Charlotte Osei, has been framed. So Center for Media Analysis set out this study to actually caution us as a nation, as an institution, to be very mindful of choices of phrases we use and words in framing hard-won reputation of individuals and institutions. For instance, in terms of framing, she was framed as incompetent with 22%. She was also framed as with 21% of public mistrust. And even, sadly, one of the frames even talks about she getting her position through sexual inducement. And we cannot allow this to happen.
So,
it's not
Dr.
either
Malgbe,
towards Mrs. Charlotte Osei, but it shouldn't happen to any of our institutions or any of our heads of institutions. For instance, when you continue to portray and to frame a certain institution or a personality in such a negative light, if even there is a very possible or non-biased intention, for instance, relating to the financial allegations that is being probed now, because these frames has already been set, it becomes very challenging for the public to actually appreciate the genuineness and the genuine intention of even the government, because these precedents were set in a very negative context.
Now, Dr. Malbe, clearly, Dr. Malbe,
we also have another framing under our sleeves. When our president, His Excellency, was interviewed at by the Al Jazeera.
Dr. Malbe, I would want us to stay.
We all know that
Dr.
he didn't
Malbe.
mean actually.
Hello, Dr. Malbe.
However, he set up certain frame. I am talking as a scientist from framing analysis, which tells us how to think about an issue, how to think about an individual, how to think about an individual or an institution, or how to think about an event. So because of that, yesterday, the news items relating to LGBT has quickly been aligned to the,
Dr. Malbe, I would want us to stay on the subject of the survey, if you can hear me.
Framing becomes very, very critical.
Dr.
And we want
Malbe,
to use this as a pointer to draw our attention, to be very mindful of how we communicate.
Dr. Malbe, I would have wanted us to stay on the survey and not delve out of it. But basically, I wanted to find out from you, what was the main purpose? What did you hope to achieve with this survey, considering the outcome or the outputs that we received, looking at the percentages?
Thank you very much. The intention of this survey is to draw public attention, individuals, organizations, opinion leaders, to be very mindful as to how they frame institutions and how they frame individuals. If we are not careful in your negative framing analysis or presentation, you might be setting a negative precedent and a negative frame, which goes a long way to affect the hard-won reputation of our individuals, of our citizenry, and of our institutions.
Right. We are grateful for your time. Dr. Mesan Malbo is the Executive Director of the CMA, talking about the EC Boss's popularity survey they came out with. Now, let's move away from that. And the Attorney General is seeking public support to apprehend the fugitive behind the Central Medical Stores, the CMS FAR, and debunking the perception that there is a grand conspiracy to bury the case. Gloria Kufu said the general public has not been supportive in the attempts to arrest the fugitive. She said if the general public was minded, reasonable force could have been used, if necessary, to arrest Samuel Dugbe, a laborer who is a suspect named in the 2015 fire disaster.
There seems to be a perception out there that perhaps there is some conspiracy to kill that case. Speaking for myself, that cannot be the situation. This suspected arson took place in 2014. As many as 18 or so accused persons are on the docket as suspects, involving many drugs of different values. There was the need, when the docket was submitted with all these names on one docket, for it to be returned, for the accused persons to be separated on separate dockets. A docket will require witnesses that have to be taken in respect of this. Number two, there were many drugs which had been destroyed in the fire. We don't have the values to them. If you study the docket, you will see that the investigation is geared towards charging the suspects for causing financial loss to the state. You need to know the amount involved. For each of these 18 or so accused persons, it was not there. Instructions were given that you must give us the figures, separate what drugs you allege they have, because there was a lot of, this happened on the suspicion of malfeasance taking place there. Then, allegedly on the morning when Iyoko was to go there for some investigations, the place allegedly was torched. The person who is even accused to be responsible for the torching is at large. I have heard people say that the man is about and has not been. Every single one of us is responsible for this to work. The law requires that even a private person should use reasonable force to accost, arrest, but within reasonable time to hand over a suspect or somebody who is apprehended to be causing some illegality to the police. If indeed people know where this man who has fled is, I think that is the bounding responsibility of that person to give the information to the police. It will be very helpful. Also, the docket required that the advice was given they should also go to the bank accounts of these suspects so we could see if there could be tracing of what happened, because some of them were suspected to have taken drugs from there and sold to private parties. Some of them are suspected to have taken expired drugs from private person and substituted them. It is quite a complex piece of case. And we need their assistance. We don't investigate. We need the assistance of the investigators to do these things before we can proceed. I have gone to this length to explain this instance so that you can have a fair idea what it takes to prosecute a matter. So it is not true that dockets are brought and we see that. There's a lot of forwards and backwards that goes on. Because when it is submitted, you want to see what possible offenses the evidence on the docket can support.
Right, so the Attorney General there, Gloria Kufu, seeking the public support to apprehend the fugitive behind the Central Medical Stores fire. But we are joined in the studio by one of the persons the reports on the CMS fire named as a suspect. He's Inua Yusuf, and he's a former member of the Central Medical Stores Management Committee and one of the 12 suspects. Yusuf, thank you for your time on Midday Live.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Now, how would you react to the Attorney General's comments? What do you make of the position?
Nana, I think that the call by the Attorney General is in the right direction. And before I state what I think, I wish to really thank TV3 and your crew and all those who have shown so much interest in going deep into the matter for the truth to be said to Ghanaians. I think that, yes, her call is in the right direction, and prosecution will be difficult in the sense that right from the onset, the statement that was issued which named me, I realized from the beginning that it was a complete fallacy. Because this is a case where I am being named as one of 12 people who banned the CMS. No allegation was made against me, no investigation was made against me, nobody gave me any chance to even defend myself if there was any allegation at all. And the worst of it all is that instead of going by the laws of this country of presumption of innocence, I was rather presumed to be guilty, and my name was put out there as being one of those who banned the place. And right from the beginning, I knew that this was quite wrong, and I decided to wait for 2 years today for the truth to come. And let me put on the record that actually I sent a petition. The very first time that this statement was made and I was named, within 1 week I sent a petition to the Attorney General. I copied the Minister for Health, and I also copied the National Security Coordinator. When this government came, I repeated a petition and I addressed every single finding that they claimed.
So how many petitions have you written so far? What has been government's reaction to your petitions?
I've written 2 petitions, and there hasn't been any response. Very quiet about it. And in the petitions, I was quite detailed about the events at the CMS and the fact that Alhaji Inua Yusuf, was never given any chance to even respond to any allegation. So I am not surprised that we are at this stage where the entire country has been misled into thinking that I was one of those who banned the place. So I think that her call is in the right direction.
So do you agree with her debunking the perception that there is a grand conspiracy to bury the case there?
Well, I do not know what
per the statements she made. That's why I was asking for your reaction on the statements she made.
Well, from where she stands, she might know about whatever conspiracy that people may be alleging that is a conspiracy to maybe hide something. I do not know about that. But what I know is that I never been the place, and putting my name out there is a complete false story, and it appears to be a misdirection from the main issues in respect of the burning of the CMS.
Per statements, do you feel vindicated by what she said, and what do you intend to do after these two petitions that you've brought forth?
Yeah, I actually feel vindicated, but I would have wished that she's very categorical about the fact that that particular government statement, the so-called government statement some people call report, I would have been happier if Madam AG were categorical that though my name being there was a false thing. But that notwithstanding, I am clear in my mind that I am not one of the 12. The whole statement is a false story and it's a misdirection. So we're praying that Dogbe will be found, because the same statement named Dogbe, and there was an earlier statement, I'm telling you, about 2 weeks into the fire, there was a publication in the Finder, just 2 weeks after that, that there was suspicion of arson, and that 11 people who ganged up to steal things in the CMS. In the list of the 7, my name was not there. All of a sudden, 1 year after that, another list comes out, 12, and I am the 12th person. So definitely there's a conspiracy by some people to misinform Ghanaians that I am confident about, because I know that I never got anywhere near.
So what do you intend to do next?
After I sent my petition, as I said, 3 days after the so-called statement, I repeated the petition to the President Attorney General, and I have gone before the Shiraj to make a formal complaint that I have been named wrongly, and I was never given a chance. I've never been given a chance to defend myself, and I was never put before any court of competent jurisdiction, and yet they put my name out there as one of those who burned the place. So I'm still waiting patiently.
Okay, we wish you well, Yusuf.
I'm grateful.
Inua Yusuf is a former member of the Central Medical Stores Management Committee and one of the named 12 suspects there in that CMS fire. You're watching Midday Live. We continue, and the Association of Magistrates and Judges of Ghana is demanding an explanation from the Works and Housing Ministry on why it authorized the invasion of the residence of a High Court judge at Cantonment in Accra. A private individual forced his way through the wall, claiming to be the new owner of the property.
This property has been in the possession of the judiciary for a minimum of 20 years.
The invasion of the private residence of the High Court judge occurred in the early hours of Monday, January 9. His wall was pulled down to enable the developer, Messrs. Ofosuhene Ajay, get access to the house. The entrance was also blocked with a heap of sand. Gravel poured onto the compound for supposed commencement of construction work by the developer. The developer made documents available to the judge from the Ministry of Works and Housing, indicating he is the new owner of the property. The document, cited by TV3 and signed on behalf of the minister by the acting director of the Works and Housing Ministry, indicated the ministry has reviewed a petition sent by Messrs. Ofosuhene Ajay for approval of a petition to the right of entry to the Cantonment Residential Area Infilling Scheme Plot 17. The letter stated the right of entry onto the property had been granted since July 2008 under the ministry's redevelopment scheme. The Association of Magistrates and Judges is unhappy with the development.
Clearly, it is unlawful. We can't imagine something happening just after we celebrated 25 years of, what do we call it? Yes, what we call multi-party government, and trying to solidify it. We just can't imagine that something can happen just a day or two after. That shows the mindset of some people.
Its president, Justice Victor Ofue, is demanding immediate reversal of the decision.
They believe that they have some people behind them, and therefore they can do whatever they like anywhere. My information is that the judge complained, and he was as if, well, I don't care whether you are a judge or not. I have been given the place, so I'm coming for it. We think that the insecurity of judges is coming too clear for everybody to see. Yes. Of course, if there were a policeman here on duty, I don't think that the man would have done what he did.
Justice Victor Ofue maintained it is a test case for the president to resolve.
If you are doing it to people in the village, why don't you do it to somebody who claims that he knows everybody in Ghana? I believe the president is talking about rule of law, and he means what he's saying. Probably this will be a test case. The president definitely will have heard what is going on because the minister has heard of it.
The Ministry of Works and Housing and the private developer are yet to respond to the issue.
Well, we understand the Ministry of Works and Housing is preparing to react to this particular incident. You're watching Midday Live. We'll still stay a while longer on matters of a court because the 4 suspects involved in a gang rape at Bantama in Kumasi have appeared before the Asqua Juvenile Court for the 4th time. Now, the case was adjourned last week after the prosecution team wrote to the court to demand some time to establish the actual age of the accused persons. The Asqua Juvenile Court, presided over by His Worship Peter Opombwahin, granted the request. Now, the accused persons appeared in court this morning in an ecstatic mood. Our reporter Ibrahim Abubakar is currently in the court and joins us for more updates on this one. Hello, Ibrahim. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Anita.
Now, bring us to speed with what's happening in court today.
Well, the case has, for the 4th time, been adjourned to next week, Wednesday, 17th of January. The prosecution pleaded with the court that they need more time to do their investigation. You know, the last time they came in court, they pleaded for time to go to the various schools of the suspects to be able to establish their actual age. They say they are still in the process, so they will need more time to be able to finish with that one. But then one thing I can confirm to you that a 5th suspect has been arrested and he was also brought before the court today.
And what was the charge of that suspect?
Absolutely. So he has been added to the already 4 suspects. So they all appeared before court today and they have been remanded again to appear next week Wednesday.
And what has the lawyers for the suspects been saying?
Well, all that the counsel, that's John Buama of the suspect, was saying is that for now they've not even applied for bail because the matter has not even been tried. So they are now in the preliminary stages and they are waiting on the prosecution to feed them with the information that they have requested from them to go and find out. So for now, even with the issue of the ages of the accused persons, they are relying on the prosecution to feed them with the information that they get.
We are grateful for your time. Ibrahim Abubakar is our correspondent in the Ashanti region, and he says that the 4 suspects in the gang rape at Bantama have also been adjourned again, and this is for the 5th time. We'll return with more on Midday Live. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us on Midday Live. Let's do some business now. And government has begun the rollout of its program to serve hot chocolate to school children from basic to the secondary level. Now, TV3 has intercepted contract documents from the National Buffer Stock Company, which has contracted a private firm to procure 5,000 bags of cocoa powder from the cocoa processing company for use by the senior high schools. Now, speaking at the 2016 World Cocoa Day celebration in Kumasi, President Akufo-Addo said it is geared towards boosting consumption of cocoa products, and the cocoa processing company says it has the capacity to supply all schools in the country.
We don't have a direct contract with the schools, but we have a contract through Edwin, which is one of the companies that are registered with Ghana Buffer. And we have letter to show to that they've got that letter. So the Ghana Buffer Company Limited has awarded that contract to Edwin, and we have a contract with Edwin where we supply them with the drink and the chocolate delight, which is the spread for the bread. It is always on order, because from the schools, it's as and when, because they are doing it for all the schools. So anytime that the Ghana Buffer company will give them that order, they will then also write to us and say, supply, say 3,000 tons. The following time, 6,000 tons. So as and when, because it's for periodically.
The Executive Secretary of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers Ghana, COPEC, Duncan Amwa, has proposed an increase in tariffs on marine gas oil to stop diversion of the product. And now he was reacting to the announced suspension of the sale of marine gas oil to ocean vessels leaving the country by the National Petroleum Authority. It will be recalled investigations by the NPA revealed some operators steal marine gas oil and sell to ocean vessels, causing government to lose about 900 million cedis.
We have, in collaboration again with the Ministry of Finance, proposed the imposition of taxes, levies and margin on all marine gas oil to discourage the criminal elements from distorting the market.
Reacting to this decision by the NPA, COPEC's Duncan Amwa said the suspension will put players out of business, considering low profits on the product.
In order to forestall any diversions, what you would need to do will be to raise the tariffs so that MGO would now sell almost the same as gas oil would sell. That way, if a person wants to divert, they're still paying taxes on them anyway. And whatever happens, I'm sure the industry itself will be happy if the tariffs were rather raised as opposed to having zero tariffs that allow people to want to consider the economic gains they will get if they divert.
Marine gas oil is a petroleum product used for vessels with the lowest tariff rate of 7 Ghana cedis per gallon compared to other petroleum products like diesel. And that's it for business. We return shortly with Nana Kojo Afre joining us with the latest in sports. Stay with us. Well, I think that will do for Midday Live this afternoon. You can follow up on our developing stories on Facebook, TV3 Ghana. My name is Lanikia Mensah Brampa. That's it. Enjoy your lunch. Good afternoon.